Oh, okay. Well, this is just this is a tank that's behind the camera right now. It's some cichlids, very interesting fish, and that big one right there is in charge for sure. I'll go more into this tank over time. It's still in transition. I did add some more plants, and this is when I was doing the work on it. It has the fish and little decorations, but in this process ended up adding some fake plants, more hiding spots. The reason those cichlids are such an interesting creature is because they become, if you have a batch of a fry hatching of them, you end up seeing them getting whittled down to the most dominant, the biggest, and then they can pair off, so you'll see male and female, and they definitely have different distinctions, and in the way that they interact. It's got these fish right here have some major personalities that I would consider. This fish is looking at me right now. That's what I'm talking about. All right, I guess it's time to record. Cleaning my neglected fish room. So this is a little 15-gallon freshwater tank that we have like next to an entryway, and man, we've had this one a long time actually. Steven at the shop has had it, and I always thought it was cool because it's a taller tank, and I don't know, it's just different, and you can kind of, if you're thinking of art, kind of picture it in such a way where you're like building up and not building sideways, which is just fun and different for an aquarium. But this had a lot of mulm. Actually, the plants looked really good. They haven't had light for a long time, and there was some fish in here, but you know, it was a couple of years, and I was really good at neglecting these tanks for the last year, so they passed on. But and then these tanks, they have fluorite. So down at the bottom is a fluorite mineral plant substrate, and I dropped the camera there. It's a little difficult. It's because of that hose knocked it down. So, but that substrate really is good for plants, but that plus wood and just neglect over time, it really leaves this thick layer of soot on the bottom of the aquarium. It's ran by just a hydro sponge, a more fine sponge, by a power head, and I think at one time it was also run by a sand filter. Let's pause it here. Yeah, it was ran by a sand filter, which was kind of cool, but it was overkill for what it was. I'm looking at the tank now. During that process too, I ended up adding rock, which I was going just that hyperlapse. It was hard to see, but I added rock, I repositioned the wood, and then I also changed out the fine hydro sponge to a coarse hydro sponge, which is only because I am using the power head, and with how much soot and debris is in this aquarium, that finer sponge, which is really nice, it polishes the water, it gives a lot of bacteria, but it was getting clogged. It's just not meant to be ran with a power head, and especially for that long. So I ended up switching it out. Looks good right now. So this next aquarium is let's see, what is it? It's a 20-gallon long, and it's been around for a while too. It was an extreme high-tech tank at one time. I was injecting a lot of CO2 with it, and then during that time too, we ended up with a lot of shrimp. There's a shrimp there. I'm trying to see if there's any shrimp still in these aquariums. So we ended up with a lot of shrimp, and I put them in here, and a couple other fish. I know there is some type of cosmos. It's a yellow type with some whiskers up in here, and I know he's in here. And we go through the process. I don't know if I can find him, but I end up finding him. I'll show you where I end up finding him. A lot of algae took over the tank, and you can see the soot. That's the soot I'm talking about. That's a mixture of fluorite, sand, and any other substrate. I end up collecting substrate and then just recycling and putting them all in my aquariums. So there's a little bit of plant left, and that driftwood is a good driftwood. I like that driftwood. It's a Malaysian driftwood. It doesn't tan in the water too much, but it does still give you that acidic, a little more acidic type environment, but it's more for decorative. It's ran by a hydrosponge as well, air pump, and it was using a hang on the back filter, but I switched it up. I'm just trying to go to a little bit easier. On this aquarium, I kind of figured, oh yeah, I've got a electric vacuum. I should use that because these things are so dirty. Just doing one water change on them, it's not getting all the soot up, all the muck off the bottom. And I'm also trying to be considerate of the fish, so this electric vacuum is going to take debris into the vacuum and then recycle the water back into the aquarium while still getting the gunk, which is really nice. And just like, yeah, this one and the other aquarium we were doing, and I netted it all the top and actually was still wondering if there was going to be some shrimp in there. The lighting system that we used for these planted aquariums, you can see right there, was Aquarium. They're nice light, nice LED. This is a black and white. I'm actually getting excited for this aquarium because this brings me back to just when I didn't even know I was working with aquariums, and just excited. I think this was a new thing for when I was a kid, which was injected fish that could glow. Now they are bred to glow, but it's kind of cool. So this was given to me, and I'm just setting it up, and I'm actually going to end up sprucing it up with even more type of black and white glow stuff. I just want all glow. This is our 40-gallon aquarium. Jeez. Excuse my, I swear I'm wearing underwear. I'm wearing shorts. But this is our 40-gallon. It's been one of our more stable freshwater tanks. We've had this thing for 10 years. And I kept it real minimal, and it housed some cichlids. It has a big moss ball in there with the platho plant roots, and actually that's what's made it so stable. It's just a lot of plant and a lot of root, always continuously sucking out their nutrients, and then it's been minimal with a couple circulation pumps and hydrosponge, and that's it. That's the one that's in the background here. Runs by sterilizer. It has the Aquarium lights. 2 are on there now. I'm running 1. Doesn't need a lot of light. At one time I was injecting it as well and was putting a lot of light on it and growing a lot of nice plants, and that was fun. Oh, okay, well, yeah, this is just this is a tank that's behind the camera right now. It's some cichlids, very interesting fish, and that big one right there is in charge for sure. I'll go more into this tank over time. It's still in transition. I did add some more plants, and this is when I was doing the work on it. It has the fish and little decorations, but in this process ended up adding some fake plants, more hiding spots. The reason those cichlids are such an interesting creature is because they become, if you have a batch of a fry hatching of them, you end up seeing them getting whittled down to the most dominant, the biggest, and then they can pair off, so you'll see male and female, and they definitely have different distinctions and in the way that they interact. These fish right here have some major personalities that I would consider. This fish is looking at me right now. That's what I'm talking about. Moved over to this rack over here. This rack's been with us for a long time and was at one time a testing station. Man, it's been through so many transitions. How's that 20 long? And then that tank that I was just working on, I'm really just setting up as like a classic, like old school. This is all what we got into the hobby for type of tank, and so I'll show that one off later more. I ended up making multiple rounds on each of the tanks because they were so neglected, and would do a water change clean, come back to multiple parts of the tank, so the plumbing, the electrical, whatever else there's on there. They're all unique, and I did that on purpose. But I think what we're seeing in this one is me doing a second round on this 40 gallon that's behind us, and really trying to just figure out the electrical. There's a mess of wires down there, and when I'm doing that, I'm trying to group the wires per tank. There's multiple tanks on that rack. I try to make sure that there's no tangles in the wire, turns in the wires. I try to make everything as tight as possible, clean as possible, and then reconnect in a dropper loop so that no water will get into the electrical, and then it's very organized when I come back around, because I always change the wires. Give it a year, something will change. I need to get into the wires, so I don't end up zip tying anymore or taping them anymore. I just try to twist them up and put them in a spot where I know I can get back to them. Always needs to be serviced. Clean the power head and the Hydro Sponge. I think at this time too, I was riding the Hydro Sponge 3, and I'm like, you know what, there's so much soot in these tanks and they've been so neglected. I bumped it up to a Hydro Sponge 5 Pro, and a bigger one, and I'm purposely like trying to get as much into the water column as possible, and then I get out as much as I can, and then I let the filter do as much as it will, and then I come back around and clean the filter. And even still to this point, I could probably do another clean or two. It's just, that's the thing about aquariums, is at some point they have to be maintained, and so whether you're doing it weekly, monthly, or in this case for some of these, not very often, you got to end up catching them back up, because what they are is they're ecosystems. So they're growing, they're living, they're building, and that's how they get self-sustained. So here's that building of this just classic tank. I think all this stuff was given to me as well, and I end up putting my rocks in there. All these tanks that I had are with rocks that I've collected over time with my family. And so what my goal is just to do simple what I had when I was a kid, and use some plastic plants that I had. I have gotten to the trap where I've wanted to use live plants, live coral, live everything, and it just becomes a chore because there's just so much to take care of. So this one, I just wanted to get back to the simple, but what I am doing in there is that's actually a tree trunk of a tree with, like, it's dead at the top and it's falling apart. And with living plants before, what I've done is I've taken a piece of driftwood and then made a living tree out of it. Well, this one I'm just going to use the fake stump and add some moss and grow like just a living tree out of it. And that's the only thing living in that tank. Then it's just trying out the Hydro Sponge too. I'm also just trying to make that one as very simple as possible. What else do we have in here? Not shown on camera at this time is there's a large sump full of live rock that I'm hoping to seize. Go into that later. And then this saltwater tank here. This was a saltwater tank that's I wanted custom because, well, I'm always just having to bend down into aquariums. I always thought, man, it'd just be so nice, even if it was just a small aquarium, to just walk up to it and have it be right at eye level. So built it up high, and it's sturdy. It's not bad. And then it goes down into the sump down here, which is more of a classic aquarium. I could have put all the filtration in here. One time I did do that. But really, I think I'm just gonna make it two separate aquariums, like just real simple, basic up here, and then we'll go coral full tech up here, but then still have them be tied to each other and still kind of be able to be balanced off of each other. That's what I got for now. I hope to keep updates of the fish room and see where it goes over the next year. All right, check you next time.